other issue, oddly enough, which is not a new thing, but I find that it just seems to not stop, is the amount of fraud I'm seeing in real estate. We have lots of people come to us, investors.
Welcome to the Dustin Sanchez TV 7-minute networking lightning round. Today we have construction and real estate litigation attorney Shannon Quadros. Shannon, please introduce yourself for the audience.
Thank you so much, Dustin, for having me. My name is Shannon Quadros. I am the managing partner of Quadros, Meagle and Crosby. We are largely a real estate and construction focused law firm with offices in Houston, Dallas, and Austin. And I've been practicing construction and real estate litigation since I graduated law school in 2010, and now I've been doing this for 15 years now.
Great, Shannon. Well, why don't you tell us, how did you get your start in construction litigation and real estate litigation?
You know, like all good things, I have to say it was a happy accident. I sort of stumbled on to construction and real estate. I originally worked, before I went, while I was in law school and before I graduated law school, I had worked in the real estate business for almost 10 years. So I was very familiar with the business on the business side of things. But when I graduated law school, the first job I got was really about insurance defense. And if you think about it, I graduated law school in 2010. This is about 7 to 8 months after the entire real estate market tanked around the country. There wasn't a lot of real estate deals happening. I'm sure there was plenty of real estate litigation around there, but just the real estate market imploded. And so most of the real estate was really bankruptcy rather than traditional real estate deals and litigation. And so I was doing insurance defense and things of that nature, more like traditional insurance defense type of commercial defense, commercial litigation defense. And then the partner I was working for one day got a construction case, and we had to do some lien work. And I was tasked with learning the law on liens and figuring it out because the client had no one else to turn to, and we just had to do it. So I studied that section of the Texas Property Code through and through, read some cases, and actually was able to get pretty up to speed to the point that even I had read some provisions of the code that I was talking to some more experienced practitioners, and I said, "Oh, but what about this section?" And they're like, "Oh, yes, you're right. So we can't quite enforce the lien and this and that." And so I was able to sort of stumble into being pretty decent at lien law, and I started to research it more and more to the point where I started writing papers on it and presenting and teaching on lien law, and I got very, very good at it. And hand in hand with that, I had some construction cases come by where we had delay claims and defect claims. And between the lien work and doing some of the defect cases, that started to be more and more the things that I was known for and getting good at and understanding the industry because of my prior business experience. And then it all coalesced into me really focusing on that, going to construction conferences, reconnecting with all the folks I knew in real estate before, and then just focusing and saying, hey, this is what I want to do, and then just going after it.
Well, that seems pretty normal for you because you were really an academic standout in law school. You were one of my mentors in law school, and it's no surprise to me that you're now a leader in the construction law and real estate law space. With that in mind, what emerging trends are you tracking or are you concerned about in construction law and real estate law right now?
So I'm going to give you two things, and they're on polar opposite ends of each other. One is a common answer I think everyone's starting to see is, for example, the use of AI to not so much draft contracts, but review contracts. I am seeing clients, and I get why they're doing this. I am seeing in-house clients, for example, who are reviewing a construction contract, and let's say that construction contract is $20,000 or less. They can now AI software that can highlight and tag provisions in the construction contract that will say, hey, these are of concern. It takes seconds. It'll run up the highlight and tag it. Versus if you are an attorney reviewing that, say it's a 50-page document, it's going to take you about 1 to 2 hours to connect the dots, mark it up, talk to your client, do some things, maybe investigate a little bit. Um, there's AI software that can do it in a minute. And so, especially when there's relative low risk, if, like I say, if it's a limited contract value, $20,000, $30,000, and different companies do different things, they might even start with the AI flag first, have a paralegal review, and then get some more senior attorneys in. But the amount of time saving they're saving in terms of a lot of these, especially you think about in-house folks, right? They're constantly sent 100 MSAs a day saying, "Hey, we need to buy something from this vendor. Hey, we need to sell something to that client." They've got stacks and stacks, and time is a problem. It's not necessarily the money, it's the time. And so this is a way they're able to do that. And so what's wonderful about it is I think it's a wonderful tool. What can be scary about it is, right, we always the one thing the um what AI can miss, right? I remember, our common connection, Leela Madden talked about an IP that she says Chat GPT cannot tell you how many R's there are in strawberry. And I always laugh about that because it miscounts the number of R's. And so if you miss, that's funny when it's a strawberry. It's not funny when they miscount, for example, say a term of liability, and suddenly your client's on the hook for that. So that's where you have to juggle that. And so that's where, because particularly for me, when we're reviewing contracts, we're always in construction, right? Things can go wrong easily. And it doesn't take, someone not putting the right mix of concrete for a building to come down, and suddenly you're looking at a $25 million claim, and people could die too. Right? There's real life at risk versus if some other small things maybe not as if the paper is not as thick, okay, the book will be a little thicker, but no one's dying from it. But if a stairwell falls, that can be a problem. So that's one polar issue, and the other issue, oddly enough, which is not a new thing, but I find that it just seems to not stop, is the amount of fraud I'm seeing in real estate. We have lots of people come to us, investors, um, active developers, and I see so many of them getting into deals with people, and for want of a better word, get hoodwinked or get defrauded by lots of people who talk a good game, say, "Hey, invest in this, invest in that. We'll give you these great returns, 15, 16, 20% returns, 30% returns." And a lot of them get really, for one of a better phrase, suckered into these big deals, and often without taking, some of the most basic precautions. And, when you try and buy a house from a lender with using loan money, the bank checks that there's insurance, the bank checks survey, all these things. But oftentimes when people have cash, there's no bank forcing them to go run a survey. There's no bank forcing them to get an appraisal. And a lot of these folks kind of skip some of these steps. But the reason that the steps are done is because they're really to protect you. Sometimes you're like, oh gosh, it's a piece of raw land. Why am I really freaking out about it? Well, I had a client the other day come and tell me when they actually walked the raw land, they noticed that the land that was advertised was not actually the land that was part of the sale. The selling realtor had shown them some drone footage and included almost 2 acres of somebody else's property. Another thing they realized, the survey didn't even show it. They didn't walk the property. There was a creek on one half of the land. So they couldn't develop as big a piece of property because they were bounded by water. So they thought they had this big square block of land, but actually they could only build about this much because there was a creek flowing through. And you can't just divert a creek. That will take an act of Congress. And they realized, oh gosh, we thought we could build 10 buildings here. We can only build 4. Changes the market value of these things a lot. So I would say there's just a lot of fraud, a lot of misinformation, and I really impress upon people. Actually go, if you can, lay eyes on the property, walk it, do your due diligence. Don't don't think, oh, I'll save $1,000 on this title policy when I'm buying a $10 million. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Get the insurance for a reason.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up fraud because I think we're seeing apartment syndicators who know nothing about apartments, but they're really great at running YouTube ads. And their limited
Yeah.
partners are going to zero right now because one small shift in the economy, and you're right, it's make sure the person you're investing with actually knows what they're doing and they're not just great at marketing and selling you a fraud. Uh, I'm glad you brought that up. We could expose that a little more. Well, I love to get attorneys like you who are leaders in the industry as many referrals as I possibly can. And I want to ask you, if I'm talking to somebody, how do I know if they're a good referral source for you?
Sure. It's funny because while I personally litigate, my call sign, for want of a better phrase, is LLC. If you're talking to a landlord, you're talking to someone dealing with a lien, or you're talking to someone dealing with a contract. Landlord, liens, and contractors. LLC. If you hear those words, I want you to think of me. And the irony of it is while I personally don't do LLCs and form real estate investing entities, several of my business partners do. And so we can handle that aspect of it too. If you're getting into business as one of the apartment syndicators, if you're going to be an investor in the multifamily property, we can set up the entity so that you can be protected. But what really I love is someone says, "Hey, I'm having a horrible time with my commercial landlord," or "I'm a landlord and I've got a restaurant client that hasn't paid my commercial rent in 3 months," or "I'm dealing with a lien. I had, you know, 5-ton AC units put in and the HVAC contractor put a lien in even though I already paid them," or their material supplier put a lien on them, but I paid the AC guy. That's his subcontractor. Why am I on the hook? And last but not least, contractors. I think there's plenty of really wonderful contractors out there, but sadly, there's plenty of really awful contractors out there, especially as you come into the eve of hurricane season. I would tell you the number of contractors that will take $60,000 of your money down and then just bounce. The number of stories, I've had little old ladies crying to me post a storm saying, "Yeah, this contractor came in. They said, look, they need the money to go buy the materials. I gave them $50,000. Never heard from them since." And so there's things you always have to look into. You can't always guarantee that you won't get swindled, but there are small things that you can do that if they come talk to me, we'd be happy to help them out, especially for some of these big purchases, because for most people, their real estate, their construction is the biggest asset they have.
Okay, Shannon, landlord, lien, contractor. Anybody having an issue with one of those
LLC.
things, I want y'all to hit up attorney Shannon Quadros. Of course, we will have his information and law firm info right here on the bottom of the screen. Shannon, thanks for coming on the 7-minute lightning round. We'll see you guys next time.